Ayomide here, and guess what? We're back for more incredible journeys into the lives of everyday heroes on the World Without People podcast. Dive into more vibrant stories, shared experiences, and mind blowing perspectives with me in season 2. New faces, new stories, but the same old vibe. So, whether you're a seasoned listener or just stumbling upon this oasis of humanity, welcome. Grab your favorite beverage and join the adventure. Let's celebrate the beauty of the world, one remarkable story at a time. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The World Without People. My name is Ayomide. I'm excited. I'm always excited because I have my friend Arthur, who is a childhood friend that I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have an episode. I need somebody. I see him post something on WhatsApp, and I'm like, yes, Arthur, can you come on? And he was so gracious to come on immediately. And honestly, it's a full conversation I want to have now that is different from what I thought I was going to have. How important friendship is and this whole idea of not cutting people off and things like that. However, before we get there, welcome Arthur.
Hey, BK, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, some of you may recognize him if you're watching the video, or some of you may recognize his voice if you're listening. He's a radio presenter. Cool 99 FM.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you are now? Okay.
Rhythm 93.7, yeah.
We them 93.7. Sorry, because people might be offended by that.
It's okay. No, not at all.
And what was I going to say? I guess let's go back because I knew you from when we lived together in Surrey. You lived the streets.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, I guess, before us, kind of technically.
Right after.
Right after, right? You could
Depending on where you're coming from.
Exactly.
Depending on what entry point or exit point it would be before or after, depending.
Right,
But
right.
it was literally on the same circumference.
Right. And we had, honestly, some of the best times. But, I don't remember what school you went to. I mean, I think those things did not matter when we were kids. It's now that people ask you,
No,
like, how you
didn't.
want to date somebody and somebody goes, oh, what school you went to? What? I don't even remember half of where anybody went to school or anything like that. We were just the kids from the block and we had a really good time. But take us back a little bit, what school you went to and how you came into radio, and doing radio.
Okay, cool. That's a really great question. I think the question is what schools did I go
Right?
to? Right? 'Cause I went about 5 for primary school. I went to 2 primary schools.
Okay.
I went to Fountain and I went to Pampers.
Like,
For secondary school, I went about 5 secondary schools, 5 high
what's
schools.
happening?
And when I tell the story to people, they tell me, "Were you that rebellious as an individual,
Right.
or were you that stubborn?" And the truth of the matter is, I'm none of those things. Like maybe I might give off that type of energy that I'm a rebellious person. I'm a very cheeky individual, which is fair enough. But it wasn't any of those things. It was just because both my folks were unable to decide what academic institution would best suit, their first son. And obviously, you're an African and Nigerian, and you know how important it is for the first son to literally be the embodiment of his parents' legacy. So for both my folks, it was important that I had a very solid academic foundation. I started off with Command Secondary School here in Ipaja. I did about 1 whole academic year there. The reason why I left was I had cerebral malaria and pneumonia in 1 year. And Command Ipaja was a military school. So, and this was in the military era when nobody was getting fancy meals in boarding school like spaghetti and the corned beef. And I'm saying it was hardcore meals all the time. So mines couldn't hack it. I mean, I wanted to hack it, but my biology wasn't going to let me. I mean, the cold was something. The sickness, the illness, the disease at the time. Maybe I was a very soft kid growing up, and so I wasn't conditioned physically for that type of hardship. So the body was breaking down too often. And in fact, it was so bad that the cerebral malaria, I mean, I never knew what cerebral malaria was until I had it. And I've done research after. And it's a very, very serious stage of malaria. That means malaria has been in your body so long, it's
Brain.
going
Yeah.
to load itself at the base of your brain.
Yep.
And a few more weeks, and this happened that you know for no day alive, you understand? So
Wow.
command was 1 year of my life. Then after which it was St. Gregory's College, which is in Ikoyi, which was
Yeah.
supposed to be an upgrade from command. But in
Right.
all honesty, to me, when I was in St. Greg's, I didn't really do much studying. I
Like,
mean, the school was supposed to belong to the missionary, and they never had control of the school. It was under government control, and anything that the government literally controls just falls apart like a house built of cards.
mm,
So I didn't do much studying there. In fact, most of my bad habits in life, I
came
picked
from
it
there.
up from St. Gregory's College or Ballinger precisely. Just outside the school, there's a police barracks there. Inside the
Wow.
police barracks, there's all kinds of debauchery,
Oh,
all kinds
Lord.
of, you know, slime and grime activity that happens there. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff that I never could was even exposed to in command. I was
Right.
exposed to
Right.
it in St. Gregory's College. Some of those things I'm even very disappointed in myself to even mention them or to even
No.
recollect them mentally. But
Mm,
that place was kind of like a breeding ground for some of the people that I'm sure
yeah. No, no.
are criminal elements today, because I can tell you some of the things that I saw in that place, man. I mean,
Mm,
from students standing up to teachers, molesting teachers sexually, I tell you, to constituting a nuisance. And don't get me wrong, St. Gregory's College is a prestigious institution. A lot of people graduated from that place with high honors and distinction. Many
right.
of them are positive contributors in our society today.
Right.
CBN Governor Yomi Kadosi is a St. Greg's alumni. Wale
Mm,
Ojo, the actor, is a St. Greg's alumni. The man I work for, Ben Murray Bush, is a St. Greg's College alumni. And a
mm,
whole bunch of other people. What's his name? Jimmy Agbadi, who ran for office in Lagos
right.
for GT Bank, is also a Greg. He's also a Gregorian. So that's Vector the Viper, Vector the rapper is also
Mm,
from St. Greg's College. What's his name? Derele,
okay. Again.
the thespian, is
Yeah.
also a Gregorian. So
Yeah.
there are a whole bunch of individuals who have contributed a whole lot, but they would tell you the same way that if you don't know yourself and you go to St. Gregory's College, you will definitely get lost.
Wow.
Maybe in that era.
Right. Right.
But at this
Right.
point in time, the school has been returned back to the missionary.
Okay.
It is now being totally sanitized. And I
Mm,
walked into that campus a few months ago. I couldn't recognize the place. Like,
wow.
I remember specific areas where specific people got, you know, treatment from bullies and all sorts. It's all gone.
Wow.
The nasty graffiti, the smells,
Mm,
it's a new environment. And I'm glad that the school has been given a facelift.
that's awesome.
After St. Gregory's College was not looking great for my grades academically, my parents moved me to top grade secondary school, which was just literally across the main road from where, you know, we lived
Which,
on Bola Shadi Bayer / Shadilabu, top grade secondary school. Yeah.
oh,
It
that's
was
awesome.
it was owned, yeah, it was owned by the lady who owns Vivian Fowler. It's the
Ah,
same
okay.
person. So
Okay.
she created a mixed version of Vivian
Right.
Fowler so boys and girls could integrate. And that as well didn't do really great for my grades as well, because when I was in top grade, it was more of a bunch of kids who were very entitled, and because the institution was private, so a lot of disciplinary measures that you would find in government schools weren't present.
Right.
And for the first time in a long time, I was seeing students talk back to teachers, you know, just getting away with truancy and a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like,
Mm.
coming from Greg's, man, this is like Christmas. And so once again,
Yeah.
I was just basically, maybe I wouldn't say faffing around, but I didn't take the academics too seriously until my parents did some deep retrospective thinking, and then they decided to switch it up for me as well. And they sent me to some missionary school called Evangel College in Okoko Michael, off the trajectory of civilization in Lagos, with the hope that if I could not find my bearings in academics, maybe God will arrest me on the campus. But instead of God arresting me, I think that's the place God abandons people to as well.
Stop
Because
it.
at that point in time, I learned that, you know, people can call on God as much as they like, you know, but if he chooses not to answer, he won't answer, because
Mm,
of the Bible says your righteousness are like filthy rags
nice.
unto him. And I really did learn that a lot of people say they know God, or they can
Mm,
speak on his behalf, or they can
mm,
interpret the scripture, but
mm.
deep down inside their hearts, they are nothing compared to anything near what God, you know, sees
You're
in an
better.
individual. But that being said, my grades did improve tremendously. And Evander College, I took academics way more seriously because I was in an environment where nobody cared how cool you were. Nobody cared whether you grew up watching Cartoon Network or you knew the latest of whatever. It was mostly an environment filled with people who wanted to just succeed academically. And dare I say, people now learn to become a sum of their environment because looking back at my life in St. Gregory's College, I didn't take school seriously because almost everybody around me was faffing around the top grade, same thing. But now being thrust into an environment where it's all academics, 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 you have to
Yeah.
pick up where you left off.
Right.
And that did some good. But again, I didn't finish at Evander College. You know, both my folks are like, okay, this isn't really quite working. So they moved me off to another institution because at that point in time, I had no intellect whatsoever as to my traditional heritage. All I knew was,
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, or share button. Whether you're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube, your support helps us to reach more people. Stay tuned for more amazing conversations, and thank you for being a part of our community.
I'm an Igbo guy. I'm from Anambra, from Nnewi, but I don't know anything. I couldn't speak one word in my language. And so my dad was like, you know what? It is an abomination for his own first son not to be able to know nothing about his heritage. So I ended my academics from my high school in Anambra State in a secondary school called the Good Shepherd Secondary School. Now just think of Evander College times three worse. So this is an environment already where they are hostile to anybody from Lagos, right? If you're a Lagosian, nobody cares. Facts that he defame you because you're from Lagos. And so all of these things made me a much better person. It actually made me a bit more tactical in terms of interacting with people. You have to be smarter with your interactions with people. And it made me understand in life the things that are most important, especially at the stages one finds themselves. So yeah, that was where I got my first diploma, academically speaking, at the Good Shepherd Secondary School. The white grades were great, jam results were great, NECO results were great, and dare I say, the investment that my parents, made trying to get me back on track academically, I think they finally paid off.
Awesome. That's really awesome, actually. I did not know that in
I know.
all of these.
I never told a story like this before.
Wow. Yeah. I guess you just see.
Every time I tell it,
Oh.
I lean towards when I was a bad guy and I was expelled all the time because it's good for social banter and all of that.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so then from Anambra, where did you go to college?
Oh yeah, that's another very interesting story. I was three universities after that too as well. So two primary schools, five high schools, and three universities. Well, you know the university struggle in Nigeria.
Yeah.
If you don't jam will jam you, right? So I was unable to get admission in the very first year because everybody wanted to go to Unilag because it was the coolest campus to be at. We tried a diploma, didn't quite work. I writing jam like two other times. I got admission to University of Nnamdi Azikiwe University, but it was for a course I didn't have any inclination to. It was library science. And I said, what am I going to do with library science? And this was a time in Nigeria when, when kids come back for the holidays and they're interacting with other kids, your parents are one to going to flaunt you like a diamond and be like, oh, that's my son studying mechanical engineering. Or that's my daughter. She's a neurophysicist. And even if you weren't at some high-end, college in America or Britain, you wanted to just be the kid who was studying something impressive. And then this is me in my mind's eye saying, oh, that's my first son. He's a Liberian. So this is doing I'm like, wow, it's Liberian. What the hell am I gonna do with that? Even if some the government was going to employ you, still be like, what's the Liberian going to do for us? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it didn't quite work out. After like half a semester, I'm like, bump this. I'm not gonna spend 1 year of my life studying how to arrange books alphabetically. No
Awesome. That's not
disrespect
all
to
they do.
library sciences. I'm just saying no disrespect. But I mean, back then, this was the common denominating explanation. And so I said, hell no. And I don't know if any library scientists, that's a big shot anyway. I'm sorry. I'm sure if I check Google, I can find some. But at this point in time, no. So I ended up going to the Enugu State University of Science and Technology. I literally wanted, and I tell people this, I actually wanted to become a police officer. I wanted to study psychology so I could understand how criminals think and
No.
be able to, impact my society by solving some of the biggest crimes that have been committed. But I didn't get the psychology ticket. I ended up getting mass communication. And there I was saying, so am I going to do mass comm? I'm going to end up reading goddamn news. And you start like April O'Neil from the Ninja Turtles going into places where the stories are horrible and stuff. But then every disappointment becomes a blessing. And
Right.
my very first year in my mass communication class, I was blown away. One of the lecturers who kind of inspired me, his name is Udolo, and another one called Okewa. They said some really intelligent things to me, and I said, this is worth listening to.
Mm.
And don't forget, this is college. Nobody's going to be telling you go to class,
Right.
do your assignment. It's optional.
Right.
And my very first day in class, I'm sitting and I'm listening to these men speak, and I'm saying, I can get behind this and I can do something with myself. Give this one a shot.
Right.
If it doesn't work, don't worry. You're not the one paying the school fees anyway. Somebody else will pay for you to go do it in that class, right? So fast forward how many years later we graduated from mass comm, Enugu State University of Science and Technology. It was a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so and I mean, say who then or what then drove you to radio as opposed to TV, like you said, or writing, that kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, first and foremost, I was living in Enugu at the time, so I was bored. I was bored shitless, man. Like just being and not knowing anybody in the entire town. Getting that person I knew was my auntie, who was a Jesus freak. I mean, she loved Jesus. She loved the Lord. She was a deaconess in her church. And there was no way I could go to her house
Yeah.
and not carry my Bible and just try and act like, oh, let's banter on the scripture. What does the word say about political activities today? And those were the only ways to get the conversation out of this woman.
Right.
Like if you come here and you're talking about something else, she's not interested. But once you talk Jesus, Lord have mercy, she's gonna give you her entire time.
Right.
So my entire trips to her house were premeditated.
Right.
And some days, I mean, I ain't had lunch for 2-3 days. I'm like, let me go to this my auntie's house. Let me just talk to her about Jesus a little bit.
I
Let's
guess.
see what happens. You know what I'm saying? And she would roll out the red carpet. We do praise and worship for like 20-30 minutes. And then, like she give me some money when I'm leaving. I'm like, yeah, this was a good run. Next time I'll come back, like I see a vision and something like that. So I got bored doing the same cycle over and over again. And I'm like, I need to do something more constructive with my time.
Mhm.
And the other thing I could do was to either join the confraternity, which was what everybody was, everybody was a cultist. Everybody I knew was a cultist. I'm like, nah, I'm too soft for that life, I beg. I'm seeing all these guys. I'm like, nah, I didn't have enough money. I'm going to start giving somebody a quarter of my allowance. It's not going to happen.
Oh my God.
There weren't that many social activities that you could enjoy unless you were born and raised in Enugu. Then you would really know where to go. I mean, I was visiting the town, so to speak, for my academic pursuits. So I was quite limited as well. But the only thing that I had to keep me company was my radio box. It was a beautiful station called Cosmo FM.
Mhm.
And I was thinking to myself, like, how is it that this station located in the deep eastern parts of Nigeria was so modern, sounded so sentient,
Right.
it attuned with my own beliefs, and it kind of was cut from my own psychological DNA.
Mhm.
It wasn't like an OGBT2 type of radio
Really?
station or something. This is literally a station that sounds crisp.
Mhm.
So I said to myself, let's keep listening. So one day they had a commercial come on, and I noticed a few things was wrong with the commercial. And I'm like, nah, this station can't be falling my hand. I'm going to go there and offer them an idea for a show.
Mhm.
So I wrote something down, took it to the station. I met some funny guy there. I handed it over to him and was like, we don't take things like this, but don't worry. Thank you for your suggestion.
Mhm.
God will bless you. 2 weeks later, my idea is playing on the radio. I'm like,
Oh, hell no.
and I wasn't the one who found out. A friend of mine said, I thought this is nothing I hear it.
Right.
I'm like, no idea is the same. I'm like, no, listen, this is your concept. There's
Right.
specific areas that are yours. And so I listened, like, okay, great. So if my idea was good enough to utilize, then I'm sure I still have 1,000 more that I write down every day.
Right.
So I went back like a month later. I met, this was in my final year, by the way.
Right.
I met the manager of the station, awesome guy. He's
Right.
passed away now, Jakarta, and his soul rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him who I was, and he says, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, listen, man, I have all this free time on my hands. I need to do something.
Right.
Like, I need to do something. I'm going to run mental in this town. He says, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Calls me up like 3 days later, introduces me to a couple of more people. One of them is another lady as well who had just graduated and says, I want both of you to pair up. Let me
Mm.
see what's possible. If there's magic, there's magic. If there isn't, we'll just call you what it is. I say, everybody, thank you for coming.
Right.
And so I started with this recorded show titled Off Campus.
Mm.
It's a program, a 30-minute program that comes up only on Saturdays and was dedicated to college kids.
Mm.
So it was kind of show that would sensitize young people on what's going on in the world and how they could make better choices
Mm.
with what they have in front of them. And I did that show for about 4 years,
Mm.
recorded. But I mean, that was my primary assignment. That was the only thing I did
True.
for 4 years. And the show grew, it grew on me. I had opportunities and trainings with guys from the BBC who found value in what the program represented and the reach the program
Mm.
had, and how the program was able to relate with young people and their concerns at the time.
Mm.
And it was really popular because I would go out and go back to campus and tell people, look, have you listened to my show? Have you
And
listened to this? And all of that was great. I was getting amazing feedback. Some of my lecturers were even listening as well. And they're like, oh my God, you're a rock star, and quote unquote, and so on and so forth. So all of these accolades were great, but it wasn't enough for me because it was a 30-minute show, comes up once a week on Saturday morning, and that was it. And I wanted to just do
right.
more. I wanted to get my voice out there. I wanted to get my opinions out there. I wanted to get my suggestions and comments out there. And there was no way to do any of that because the station at the time had a full deck. It's like a Premier
Mm.
League team. If you have your first bench and second bench, you're not going to bench anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody who is playing is meant to be playing. So
Right.
if you were unable to get a jersey, then you have to wait for maybe the first team to die or the second set to maybe resign. And lo and behold, one of the guys who was a big shot in the station decided to relocate to America. And I'm
Mm.
like, have a great job like this, you go to America. I was like, I'm handing over to you now. Like,
Right.
you watching you do this job, so you got to know how to get it done. Like,
Yeah.
no more handlebars for you. You're gonna do it. I'm like, yeah, sure, great. I'll do it. I'll get it done. And so a management meeting was called. I was giving the New Jersey. I'm taking JD shifts. And JD had one of the best shifts on the radio at the time. It was a show called Cosmo Fiesta.
Okay.
Started off at 7 p.m. all the way to 10 o'clock, Monday to Friday. So
Okay.
this was a big bump up from
Yeah.
doing the show 30 minutes recorded
Right.
on Saturday mornings.
Right.
And I have to now do a live show for 3 hours,
Mm.
Monday to Friday.
Mm.
And so immediately that cleared in my eye. I'm like, where am I going to start from? How do I
Right.
put content together? Then the word content was not as
Right.
mainstream as it
Yeah.
is today.
Right.
In fact, the word was show flow.
Mm.
Show flow or program schedule. Like, what is
Yeah.
your program outline?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know there's so many things that a radio presenter has to prepare for when you're doing the show. Number one, every single song you're going to play has to be accounted for. You
Yeah.
just can't pick a song out of them and just play it into filling the airtime.
Right.
Like, the music has to tell a story. So
Right.
from the moment you press the play button to the last song,
Mm.
everything must be accounted for. Every
Mm.
single time you put on that microphone to say, hello, how are you?
Mm.
From the intonation and the accent you used to say hello, that
Right.
can tell your listeners this is the energy that this show is going to have.
Right.
So these are the things that I was so unaware of because
Mm.
I had been doing a recorded show. And so
Right.
when you do a recorded show, none of those things are your words. You're just there to deliver your scripts. And you
Yeah.
walk out of the studio, the producer does the music, brings all of these things together. But literally, as the driver of that program, the
Yeah.
songs, even the radio jingles you
Right.
play
The commercial.
within the show
Yeah.
help create the overall catalog. I didn't know
Right.
any of that.
Mm.
So this is me jumping in my very first show on a Tuesday evening. I did the show. It's terrible.
Mm.
It's terrible.
Mm.
The Thursday after that, we had our first postmortem. Jikato calls everybody into the office room. And they weren't doing the postmortem because of me, but I felt that day that postmortem was because of me. and he asks everybody, "You've heard from our new player. Can you guys give us comments on how his performance was?" Now, traditionally, people say, "Ah, he wasn't that bad. He just needs a little bit of help." It wasn't like that. He
It's
rips the band-aid off
oof.
without remorse. I remember a guy called Ralph Chidozie George, who is currently on Super Sports now. He was one of the big sports presenters on the radio. Ralph's voice still rings in my head, and Ralph goes in the burst. It was horrible, trash. Is this what we are letting on our airwaves now? And there I was in my chair, and my flight or flight mechanism told me you can either sink or
Yeah.
swim with what Ralph is saying. And I all looked up at everybody and I just said, let me just say one thing. This is the last time you guys get a bad show from me. The last time. And I walked out of there with tears in my eyes. And I just smoked a cigarette somewhere and I'm like, damn it. I can't let these people say this to me again. What
Yeah.
do I need to do? What do I need to do? So I'm
Well,
going on, I'm sitting with all the other senior presenters in the office and I'm taking ideas from them, asking these guys, I need this, I need that. Granted, there's a whole bunch of politics happening in radio stations. Some of the guys there wanted their own person to come
I
and
feel
take
a
over
bit,
that shit.
right?
So
Exactly.
it was not in their own interest that I succeed for
Right.
some of them.
Right.
Other way, we were pissed off that some guy who just came from nowhere, is doing a
Yeah.
campus show, is now sitting down here getting
Right.
this. But I took all of that in good faith and I said, if I were in that position, I want the same thing too as well. I want somebody else who I thought was more deserving to inherit that spot. But guess what?
Right.
This is the cookie that they've given everybody. It must be crunched.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to do my best. And so in the weeks to come, the change wasn't instantaneous. It took a
Yeah.
while to get better. I had to understand the show, understand the music, understand the audience, understand the community, understand myself as an individual, and know the lines I was willing to cross to communicate to my listening audience. And so when I had understood that to a percentage, it now made it easier to improve because I realized that improvement wouldn't just happen overnight. It would take time, but the visible changes would be present.
Right.
And when all of that happened, in another 1 year, I wasn't doing Cosmo Fiesta any longer. I was doing the afternoon show. From doing the afternoon show, I was being tossed to do the morning. I was now strong enough to do setting belts for myself. I was
Right.
doing the late night shows, even reading to the A's. In fact, there was one day, the most senior, respectable reader of the A's, his name was Sidi Aneke, amazing guy. I was signing off from the airwaves, and he called me and he said, Arthur, you just dropped a speech band. And the way the song came segued into the whole thing, he was with a bunch of government individuals that they were shouting, who is this guy? He must be some American brother, that his delivery is so smooth. And I was like, really, Sydney? Really? You expect me to believe? Like, I thought I kid you not. And the next days after that, everybody in the office was telling me all the same thing that they heard me over the way. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to do it every other night. They said, no, that night was different. The flow, everything. And then weeks after that, it was just compliments after compliments from different people that, oh, I listen to you, you sound so sound, you know what you're saying. Even my dad one time called me and said, look, man, where he was very proud that I was his son, but he couldn't tell anybody there because he wanted to get their reaction. That everybody there were like, they took a break from listening to their regular programs on other Igbo speaking stations just to listen to my 3 hour international broadcast. And so, even though those things were great at the time, and it kind of gave me validation that I'm no longer where I was in the game, I'm on a different level now, it did feel good to finally know that I deserved the opportunity I got to be on the microphone. And something Chikato told me when he gave me a job. He said, good looks will get you in a place, but it will not keep you there. So you could be able to bamboozle everybody with good English speaking ability, you might have the charisma, but if you don't have the substance for the objective, you're not going to be there for a very long time. And to this day, when Jika passed away last year, it's one of the things that I put out there on my tweet with his picture. Like that really, it really got to me. That's some other very deep things that Jika told me that I later on found out were factors that aided in him giving me the job. But when he made that statement, it finally made sense. He understood he had to give me a chance. And if I didn't merit the chance, then, at least he would say, he's done his part.
Right, right, right. No, this is amazing. It's really, really amazing. I think one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking is the psychology of all of this. Like people don't understand
Hmm.
how much psychology is involved in radio shows
It
as
is,
opposed to TV. Because TV, there's that maybe because you're showing your face. So you understand that your emotions have to
hmm
show with your face and all of that. But you're saying that
yeah,
even with the radio, there's all of that thought process
hmm
that goes into that.
hmm
I can talk a
correct.
little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for so in my later years when I started training younger presenters as well, one of the things that I always put on the forefront for them was you got to realize you're not speaking for yourself. And it's something I tell to even people who are trying to get into the podcast stage. The first thing you got to understand is you're not speaking for yourself. You're speaking from your standing point,
Right.
but you're not speaking for yourself.
Mm,
You're speaking to inform, update, sensitize people on a particular subject matter that they are also equally passionate about.
mm,
One of the things that Jika told me, and one of the senior presenters by the name of Juanita, she told me, never assume you're the smartest person in that booth.
mm,
There are people who are 100 times smarter than you, who are listening to you,
mm.
and they're waiting for you to mess up.
Right.
And then they'll call you just to embarrass you on the show to tell you you don't know what you're saying.
Mm,
And one of the most important things about being a radio presenter is you must be above reproach.
mm,
Your word is like the word of God, small g.
mm,
It is that important that if I say it's going to rain in the next 2 hours, bro, it had better be storming in that 2 hours, or else you would just be a noisemaker.
right.
So these are some things I tell people, like, you gotta know the onions. So
Mm,
when I started training younger people, I told them what is important is understanding life from this perspective. Life is about facts.
mm,
Before you open your mouth to say it, it must be facts.
mm,
Don't leave it to assumption. Don't leave it to maybe.
mm,
It must be fact.
mm,
And then when you say it, you can tell anybody, go and bet with your mother's life. It's the facts.
mm,
And nobody be able to approach you. So
right.
without that, keep your mouth shut and you'll be fine. Very
Mm,
fine. I've had people call me in my younger days. I had people call me on the phone and waited to yell, "You're horrible. Go and get training." Blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, it happens,
mm,
right? It happens to footballers. You put a skittish footballer on the pitch, he
right.
misses a few goals. Everybody's like, he's horrible. He can't play for life.
Right.
But that same guy score a hat trick 3 days later, and
Yeah.
all his sins are forgiven.
Right.
So I always tell these young people, always be in a consistent space, in a consistent state of improvement.
Mm,
Never agree if arrived.
right.
Continue to push yourself forward.
I know.
One of the equally most important things is to know the type of presenter you want to be. So there are many types of radio presenters. You have presenters who are into sports,
Right.
into lifestyle, luxury, fashion, gossips, celebrity, tech. Now
Right.
it's divided into so many conversational genres that
Right.
there's not enough airtime and there's not enough time in 24 hours to host all these conversations. And that tells you it's great because
Right.
human beings are many things at once,
Yeah.
right? So find out what kind of individual you want to be, find your community of people you want to broadcast to, and
Right.
give them their truth.
Yeah.
Don't hold it back. Give it to them in such a way that they would enjoy being served that story. It's like being a cook in the kitchen. There is only one way jollof rice can look like, no matter
Yep.
what you want to call it.
I know that's
Is when
right.
you guys say, this is jollof.
Yes. Or
So
let's
if you
just
like
say
put fried
Nigerian
plantain on the
jollof,
side,
sha. Let's just say Nigerian
exactly.
jollof.
And let's say Nigerian jollof. If you like, put fried plantain there, put corned
Yeah.
beef, put chicken,
Yeah.
put coleslaw. The
Yeah.
main thing is it is jollof first,
Yeah.
and everything else is surrounding it. So it's the same
Yeah.
thing being a radio presenter. You got to give people the jollof, all the wish that you put around it is what amplifies the broadcast. It makes it very
Mm,
interesting. It makes it calm, makes it
mm,
amped up. But all of these things, right? A
yeah.
radio presenter is literally supposed to be a depository of
Mm,
knowledge.
mm,
So, big advice to anybody who wants to be a radio presenter, you must read everything. Like,
wow.
it's one of the few gifts I know I had growing up. I just literally love to pick stuff up and just read, whether it was for academic pursuits, or it was just for chilling
Right.
and all whatnot. I just always love to read.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you, given that we see a lot of podcasts pop up
Mm-hmm.
now, and I mean, you did say something
Mm-hmm.
just now. You said there's not enough space, there's
Yeah.
24 there's really no space. So I kind
Yeah.
of see how, yeah, sure, podcast isn't exactly, competing in that sense. But I do feel like, and I'm sure you've seen it when they say sometimes say like they give everybody a podcast these days, especially guys. There's just been a lot
Hmm.
of conversation around what guys go and do and talk about on podcasts and all of that. So what would you say about that development, especially in Nigeria? I do, I mean, I have to agree with some of these people. Some of the things that you hear from podcasts, especially podcasts by guys in Nigeria, is concerning. And so, one, what would you say to
Hmm.
people who are like, okay, well, we can't get into radio, obviously, but we can do a podcast? Two, how do you differentiate yourself? I guess in that sense, because it's now becoming a saturated market as well.
Oh, definitely. So the saturation has just begun. That's what I'm going to first of all say. If
Yeah,
things saturated now,
yeah,
chillax. Wait till the ending of next year. Then you will see proper saturation.
yeah.
And it just tells you, first and foremost, well, and on the same lines, one of the things that we've suffered from is stifling of voice.
Mm.
Nigerian Airways is guarded jealously
Yep.
by the NBC to
Why?
filter the type of content that gets out there for good reason.
Okay.
If you go back to the genocide days in Rwanda,
Mm.
the genocide was caused by radio.
Ah. Okay.
One guy went on the airwaves, called another tribe cockroaches, and said, "What do you do to cockroaches? Crush them." Before those words were completed, people came out en masse
Mm.
looking for the cockroach tribes to crush,
Mm.
and they went on a crushing spree.
Mm.
That is the summary of Hotel Rwanda,
Mm.
that beautiful film with what's his name? Oh,
Um,
I forget his name. I remember.
they might see his face too, but like,
Char, yeah, the dark guy.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
the
yeah,
very. He was an Iron Man. I
yeah,
remember his name. Don't worry.
exactly. He's
Anyway,
the one thinking Iron Man now. Yeah. Hmm.
so that's one of the ways how that's one of the reasons why the airwaves are guarded jealousy
Mm.
by the NBC, and it's for good reason.
Okay.
Now, another reason is because we have a lot of impressionable minds
Right.
out there, and I'll tell you how impressionable people's minds are. Growing up, I believe that an egg needed only 2 minutes to boil.
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
Why? You said on the. You
Tell
had
you
it on
why.
the.
I was reading a mathematical problem in a newspaper
Mm.
where it says if it takes 2 minutes to boil an egg, how many minutes will it take to boil 10 eggs? And the only thing I took from that mathematical problem was it's 2 minutes to boil egg. And there I was.
That is
Every time
so
I want to
funny.
boil an egg, guys, just 2 minutes. And then the egg will come out half done. I'm like, no, I saw it in the
seven,
newspaper. It
seven
says
minutes at
this.
least.
Exactly. Now, without proper contextualization,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of things that we see can be lost in the translation.
Yeah.
And you don't know how many people are not going to take out their time to listen,
Yeah.
grab the context,
Yeah.
and utilize it.
Yeah.
Now, if we now expose every single thing everybody says in the podcast on the airwaves, you don't know which mind we are going to affect the wrong way.
Yeah.
So for some terms and purposes, it is important to separate professional broadcasting from non-professional broadcasting.
Right.
Now, which people are enjoying the money the most are the non-professional broadcasters, which is the podcasting. So technically,
Either way.
they're not supposed to vex that they have not been allowed to immerse themselves in with the people who are following the rules and regs.
Right.
It's fine,
Right.
right? Now, in terms of the type of content that people say, that is also something I live for the content creator.
Right.
If he believes or if she believes
Right.
that a particular subject matter deserves to be discussed, the only way that subject matter gets affirmation or condemnation is by the amount of people that are participating in that conversation. Now, if nobody wants to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
why a
Yeah.
man
Yeah.
deserves to have 20 girlfriends and he deserves the right to be given an award, then that conversation would be condemned by the moment he
Right.
drops that broadcast out. Nobody's going to clap hand or going to drop some comment that's
Yeah.
going to make the thing go viral. It'll just be left there with crickets. But if the conversation had validation amongst the
Right.
people, then we're going to see a lot of people jumping in there to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's literally the truth. Same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about that. I have a question about that. Sorry to interrupt, but does it also make it true? It's like almost like saying that there are people who may be talking about pedophilia, and then so we, if somebody wants to listen to anything about
Mhm.
pedophilia, whatever, we should allow it happen. Aren't we also responsible to say that we should not allow things that we know are bad
So let me
to
put it to you
happen?
like this. In the classroom, pedophilia is discussed as a psychological problem. Yes or no? And in that context that is being discussed, it is permitted. Very good. But nobody says that that is the only context to discuss it for the conversation to be permitted. Now, I'm not speaking for pedophiles, but I'm sure there is a
Yeah,
WhatsApp group that has pedophiles everywhere where they congregate. And whoever is podcasting for
yeah,
pedophiles
yeah.
is reaching his or her markets, trying to defend, amplify, or whatever, but they keep their circles closed. Point I'm trying to make here is human beings have been wired in different ways where you and I cannot know the extent of that wiring and what tweaks that wiring up or down.
Right,
Anything is a subject of discourse as long as the conversation is maintained on a particular stratosphere. So if a conversation is private and is meant for a group of people, and and as long as they're not going out of their way to push that conversation to my face. By all means, discuss what you want to discuss. After all, which is discussed at
right.
night. They don't come and knock on my door and say, "We want to go for a meeting. Oh, please, oh, can I pass through your house?" No, they go to their bush and go and do their meeting. Anybody calls my name, and we're all fine. But the moment when you're going to suck blood for meeting and you want to
Hmm?
pass through my room window because of the Iroko tree where you do your meeting is my backyard, and you're telling me that the tree you want to do your meeting is in my backyard and I should allow you to pass, of course I'm going to chop your tree down.
Oh, no,
So my
please.
point to anybody who has any content that is not society friendly, keep it to yourself and your community. Do not bring it to where people are going to mark you for dead. That's what I tell everybody because I can't control everything. People who steal money from government, they all don't come to the government office and telepathically tell themselves, add 4 billion, add 3 billion. They've already discussed it separately, come to a conclusion,
Yeah.
taking comments and suggestions, filled out their flyers, and they've submitted it. And they come to the house and said, "Oh, this contract is too small. Add 100 billion for this." That's how it's done. Same thing with these conversations that may be
Right.
relevant to society or may be irrelevant to society. And by the way, who says who says what conversation is relevant or not? Society agrees at the end of the day. So, my thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, but you still said something though that Hotel Rwanda happened
Hmm.
because of one conversation on the radio. So it also begs the question that whether it's through the
Hmm.
radio or through podcast, there can still be things that happen because one person opens their mouth who should not. So I don't obviously
Hmm.
don't want to be regulated. I mean, I do this. I don't particularly share my own opinions and all of that. I'm inviting guests to share their opinion. So maybe mine is a little different. But I guess my question is, you know, don't we have? Isn't there a need maybe to still figure out some kind of alignment that would work for everybody to, to start to produce worthy content? Because the point is, whether it's radio or books or TV, like you mentioned, one of the reasons why you did
Hmm.
this impact society changing. Like the first thing that you did, see the value that it
Hmm.
brought to college students, right? I do think that we all, as a society, have a responsibility to putting things out there that elevates, that have impact. And if there's no regulation, how do we control the debauchery that is happening in our society
So
or in
let me
our
put it this way
community?
to you as well. Hmm? I agree with what you said, 100%. Those bubbles of laughter are coming again. But let me ask you this, BK. Is it every single surrounding or congregation of celebration that is in the advancement of mankind? No, that's the answer. Not every celebration that is being had is on the theme of the advancement of mankind. People celebrate because they've stolen money.
Mm,
People celebrate because they've just done
mm,
something grossly illegal. People celebrate just because they can,
right,
they're rich, and every other day they can have a party and they can
right,
amplify their personal
right,
experiences at this party. Now, people celebrate genuinely because they're trying to bring like
right,
minds together to bring sensitization to a particular cause. They want to see more good things happen in a
yeah,
particular area in life. And so when they congregate, these are things at the back of their mind.
yeah,
We can't stop people from congregating. We can't stop people from thinking.
yeah,
We can't stop people from publishing books.
yeah,
I've seen some really amazing books. I've seen some really
right,
grotesque books in my life. One of the things I told you in St. Gregory's College that
mm,
became almost like reading a newspaper. There was this pornographic material that was always circulating around. It was called Lolly at the time. Somebody decided to make a pornographic comic with Nigerian characters, prints, and sell. A publisher collected money from this guy
yeah,
to print this thing. Somebody as well collected money from this guy to sell it at his
yeah,
stand without care. And so if
yeah,
people can get away with already printing
yeah,
grotesque material, fictions of debauchery, how
right,
much more audio
mm,
creations and visual expressions of sin? Nobody's reading books any longer
yeah,
because everything you want to read, you just
yeah,
want somebody to visually express it to you or give it to you audibly. And so if people could be getting
right,
away with pornographic material back in the
right,
day, guys like you, Hefner, and so whatnot, have been getting away with creating smart material for their smart audience. How much more people who are in the podcasting
yeah,
space or the vlogging space, of course, they will find a way to find. It's one of the reasons why OnlyFans
yeah,
exists because there's a group of people that want to enjoy this type of content and somebody's ready to monetize it. So it is capitalism that is the problem,
yeah,
one of the problems that is encouraging this type of behavior. But then again, if you know yourself
yeah,
and you know the type of content you want to be exposed to, that shouldn't be a problem. Because just like kids,
yeah,
a
yeah,
6-year-old child is not going to watch the 10 o'clock news to hear what's going on in Iceland or Georgia because he doesn't care about this type of things. What he wants to see is Minecraft and Roblox. That's what and Louis, that's what he
really,
wants to see. So his
yeah,
attention is there.
yeah,
I don't care about the news. It's what I want. Same
yeah,
thing with an adult. An adult is not going to
yeah,
switch to
yeah,
a Minecraft channel, maybe because you want to monitor what your kids are doing, but an adult's not going to look for underaged content to go and watch Sesame Street all over again. No, you know what you want to get in life because whatever
yeah,
it is you're getting, right? Whatever it is you're getting is going to advance you,
yeah,
is going to improve what you already know.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so my final question, because we have to keep it short and sweet. It's been 15 years or so now with radio. What is the next step for you?
So I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
For me,
And not because you cannot
I
do
mean, I
it for
could. I
forever.
mean,
I just mean like,
one of the
yeah, exactly. There's
no,
nothing wrong
there
with that. And I
nothing
think
is
it's really
actually. So one of the
lovely.
things that I'm naturally going to gravitate to do is
Yeah.
because I don't like. If you notice, I have a problem with authority. Moving from one secondary school to that. So
Mm,
that has stuck with me for a while. I'm literally not the kind of person the MBC can tell to do something and they expect me to line up like a zombie. No. For the Nigerian space, I'm
right.
definitely already started my own podcast shows as well. But I'm trying to position myself as an individual that anybody could talk to. I want to be your
Mm,
what's the guy now who's in the confession booth. I want to literally be able to talk to anybody from any walk in life,
mm,
whether you're a farmer, you're a plumber, you're a president, you're an executive. I literally want to be able to have a
yeah.
conversation with you to find out how much impact your world is making on the world, right? Or just give what it is you're doing more
Right.
light. So there's so much in the world that we don't know. A few years ago, I came across a manuscript that showed me the wonders of the Benin city and the original architecture and layout of the
Mm,
kingdom, and I was blown away that such a kingdom existed pre-colonial era.
a few years ago, I was introduced to the
Right.
subject of an individual called Master Musa, one of the richest men in the entire world.
Mm,
And I'm saying, wow, the richest man in the
mm,
world, even richer than King Solomon, stemmed from Africa. And this is knowledge that we never had. Even in secondary
mm.
school and all the schools I went to, I never
Right.
came across any of this. So there is so much in the world that I don't know. And if the only way I can increase the
Yeah.
amount of knowledge I have is by talking with people who are also gathering knowledge in their own way and without them knowing it, then that's fine by me. And so that's one of the things I
Yeah.
want to do. One of the things I'm currently doing as well, because I've always also been an esports enthusiast, it's literally trying to help younger people find ways to
Mm,
monetize their passion, really. Right? There are so many young people in Nigeria that have amazing
mm.
passions, but those passions don't put food on the table because the industries and the systems that they're supposed to depend
Right.
on aren't quite mature yet. And so one of the things I want to do is to prepare these young people
Mm,
for when these industries come in, they would literally be amongst the first peoples to benefit.
right.
And like Jika told me and my friend when he left Nigeria for America, when he handed over his show to me, you always have to be ready to pass on the torch to somebody else. I don't want to be the
Yeah.
egg boy in somebody's destiny, blocking somebody's destiny, telling you, I will leave you to make your own mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I made my mistakes. It's important you make mistakes in life. If you go through life perfect, you're going to have this messiah complex. And when you fall from there, you might not get up again. So I want young people to do their own thing. Like a lot of young
Right.
people already, they are influencers online, they are content creators, and all of this is great. But I don't want them to forget that look, while you're a content creator, while you're an influencer, you need to make impact. A lot of influencers are not influencing, they are
Yeah.
being influenced by these products that they are trying to get
Yeah.
money from. So
Yep.
in the other way around, it's the industry that is compelling you and making you who you are not. You're becoming a different type of product that has no brand and
Yeah.
has no substance. Let me say I'm a brand.
Yeah.
You really don't know what that word means. Calm down.
Yeah.
So you need to know yourself.
Yeah.
Fela
Yeah.
Nicola Kuti did not know himself until
Yeah.
he dated the Black Panther woman who was telling him, "You're singing Onido Doni Moi Moi. Listen, look at what's going on around you." And this was something I even
Yeah.
saw in the video some days ago. This is what is
Yeah.
going on around you. You are not the best singer in the world, so you might not even go
Mm,
far with your singing ability, but you are not a voice for something beyond yourself. And years later, Fela carries paint and paints his face and calls
yeah.
himself the spirit of oppression coming back to reign on top of our leaders. And instantly, Fela's voice is one of the worst voices ever in singing history, but
Yeah.
his music will never die because he realized who he was, the type of impact he could have, and he
Yeah.
did the things that he needed to do. So
Yeah.
maybe I might not paint my face like Fela, but I'm gonna do some. Definitely do some.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it so much. I love it so
Anytime,
much.
BK.
Thank you, Arthur. You get to ask me
Whew,
what
what made you start podcasting?
exactly what you said. Actually, I was going to tell you we need to
Mm-hmm,
talk. I think it's that I've learned so much even from this short things. Like even I've watched
mm-hmm,
Hotel Rwanda. I've read the story, but I guess maybe I forgot it. So just
mm-hmm,
even the reminder of that, the reminder of how important the voice is. Just I've learned so much in this 50 minutes or so conversation, and I think that for me, I realized that
mm-hmm,
I can't read everything. And
mm-hmm.
so I can talk to people, and we've
Yeah,
known each
man.
other for a long time, but we also haven't spent much time talking about this. Like, there's so much I do not know
Mm,
about you, and I call you my friend. So I get to learn about the people that I already know, and
mm-hmm,
then if I'm meeting new people, I get to learn so much more, and also leave impact because I think anybody that has listened to this today, again, if nothing else, they understand the importance of impacts. They understand about making choices. They understand, even like what you said, you can get the opportunity, but are you able to make something of that opportunity and things like that? So I think that if I leave nothing else in the world, so when you said, "Oh, people are making money with podcasts," I'm like, show me the
mm-hmm.
way because I'm not doing that yet. But and I've been doing this for 2 years, but I know that with every one of these conversations, at least one person is learning from this, and
Anytime,
it's so
BK.
important to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Hey,
I really, really
anytime, my sister.
appreciate it. God
Anytime,
bless.
bro.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode. Just like you would share with friends about a great book you read, don't forget to share this if you enjoyed it. Connect with us on IG and Twitter at TWWPcast and get details on the website at worldwithoutpeople.org. And hey, remember to make loving others the story of your life. Until next time, this is the World Without People.